Well, ladies and gentlemen. Nasdaq, is that not the all-time high yet? I'm talking about the micros, by the way. You know, this is at all-time highs. I mean, if there is anything else against it, I mean, that was the previous high, and that is a new all-time high. I mean, yeah, that's all-time high for me. I mean, if we just go into even further weekly part time frames, I mean, I don't see anything from the day it started. I mean, if we just keep going down, that's when the future started, and that's where we are, right? Yeah, I think that's an all-time high. Anyways, I just wanted to air that out because people are like, what the hell are you talking about? Yeah, I'm just talking about the micros because that's the only one that's moving up right now. Anyways, what is going on? Well, you've got to understand, ladies and gentlemen, there's been some very interesting flavor. Powell is actually giving the market what it wants with the expectation of interest rate cuts. Now, Trump is currently speaking at NATO, and he's not really said anything that's caused the market to do anything, but you can see across the board that we've got some very interesting movements, and everyone is now like at all-time highs. Given the circumstances, the story is starting to marry up to the idea that when the Fed pivot comes, what perfect time to actually reverse all assets. So I'm going to break it all down for you today, ladies and gentlemen, and just give it to you as quick as I can, and then let you guys continue about your day. So let's get with the program. So again, back to this. I spoke about it last night. For every Fed pivot that you see in this chart, the S&P 500 was at an all-time high, okay? And then every time the pivot came in, the market's corrected, all right? We look at the Nasdaq, we're at all-time high ranges, okay? We look at the S&P, we're pretty much nearly in those ranges as such, okay? Because Nasdaq is the one setting the record. Here we go. Nasdaq set to extend record as Powell awaited. Whenever they say record, it means they're hitting all-time highs. Now, with that being said, Powell is going to be speaking later on today. So 3 p.m. UK time, which is in the next 50 minutes or so, that's when Powell is going to be testifying. Okay. Sorry, guys. My head is fried today. A really bad headache. But anyways, that doesn't matter. Trump. Crypto push. The 2.4 billion liquidity pool that's going to give Trump news, Trump media, the flavor of buying Bitcoin. Well, you got another participant that's killing it right now. And could you imagine if there is now a battle to pick up as much Bitcoin as possible? Because these balances are starting to pick up pretty well. Grayscale, I just think it plays hedges continuously because their balance doesn't go up or down. It just stays in a boring range. But BlackRock's ETF at 683,000 seems to be doing pretty well with the accumulation going into it, or we haven't really seen that much activity. We have seen liquidity coming in, but nothing much for the BlackRock ETF. But I do want to make reference to the level that I'm talking about with Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin right now is up 1% for the day, okay? And the issue that I've got is it's a nice climb. It's not a bad thing, okay? But I really need to see price action moving away from these ranges rather than giving us these big candlestick movements and it's not really gaining speed. We need to see this candlestick right here coming into play as price climbs up, okay? That's what you're looking for when it comes to understanding if Bitcoin is going to rally further up. Now, there is a lot of speculation about the tension between Iran and Israel, and the story is that they're violating the terms of the ceasefire. But that looks like it's still carrying on. That looks like the market doesn't care about it anymore. What they care about now is the interest rates. Going into the bond market itself, to put it into perspective, the 2-year yield is going down. That's what we want to see. When the yields go down, the stock market goes up. The 10-year bond market is down. What does that mean? Well, it means investors are they're not going into the bonds. They're going into high-risk assets. Why? Because money is going to get cheaper now. Interest rates are coming down. Dollar then can principally start to come up. Now, the level that I'm talking about with Bitcoin, ladies and gentlemen, is this one right here. You go to the daily time frame. What you got to be mindful of is this. Bitcoin has done this a couple of times. Where's my thing? Bloody hell, what a day. So there's your all-time high. Failed it right there. Failed it right here. Failed it right here. And this right here is where we are. It's about how price here behaves. That's going to dictate if this reversal from here is going to sustain itself to mark up. You are in principle looking at what would be the idea of DCA. Now, DCA is on the principle that when assets are moving up, it's the dips that you buy with the intention that they're going to continue to go up, so that the next dip that you do actually succeed at taking on is the one where you can average in again with the profits that you're making from here, take some off, add to it right now, and then continue with the move up. Problem is most DCA, based on the way crypto's been behaving, a lot of people have been conditioned to believe that when Bitcoin goes down, you're DCAing on these retraces or waiting for Bitcoin to go down and then just leaving it go down when it buys and go down. Yeah, if you're a hedge fund manager, naturally, you can do that when you're a hedge fund manager and you've got billions of dollars to work with, because you then are in a position to hedge yourself. But when you don't have billions of dollars to work with, you're not in a position to be DCAing when the move to the downside is happening. Because as a retail trader, it's going to pressurize you and squash you and then put you into a state of capitulation where you're like, what's the point in buying anymore? Which is why DCA would only work favorably for the retail trader on the premise that you've got yourself a move to the upside and that you are in a bullish market, to say the least. You improve the odds of the DCA working in your favor. But when it's in the drawdown and when assets are depreciating, the DCA becomes harder to manage. Okay? Now, it doesn't stop you from doing DCA when price drops and you can make some profit on the retrace up, but people still hold on to it and wait for the drop down to DCA again. So you're averaging down in principle. That's not going to help you now, is it, when you're limited to a certain amount of liquidity? All right? So just take that into consideration when you are working with Bitcoin. I mean, the market today is just doing wonderful things. I'm just looking at everything and it just looks like a crazy move to the upside. Bitcoin right now on the daily time frame is showing signs of crossing the 5 and 13 EMA, okay? And when the 5 and 13 EMA cross over, we need to see them expanding above the 50 EMA to sustain the idea of a rally, okay? So as long as they're maintaining that rally and prices above those moving averages, you've got yourself a valid momentum move to the upside. An example of it would be right here. Back when Bitcoin was at 86, they broke above the 50 EMA, they broke above the 5 and 13 EMA, and both the 5 and 13 EMA, which is this yellow line and this red line, will then trade above the 50 EMA, and then you've got expansion to the upside. That is, in principle, what you're looking for, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Yeah. There are no retail traders broke. Is it pump fictional? That's nice. I like that. But yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, that's the level you really need to be paying attention to with Bitcoin. It's this level right here, okay? Inside of this wick, that's the level, because it can succeed that. Then if the optimism is there, Bitcoin will continue with its narrative to the upside. If it can't sustain that point, then it's just another rally up to then prepare it to come down. Quickly going into the order flow, you're seeing a cluster of bids right here, which is sort of a good thing when you think about it, because it means that they can now start buying Bitcoin on the cheap. And it's a relatively decent amount of bids. So the idea is that they'll do a stop run to then try and collect those to try and continue. Who knows? Okay. But when you're looking at it on the higher time frame, give this day a chance to finish, because we've seen this before. Bitcoin has moved up aggressively before the New York markets, and then they end up giving us a horrible wick. Is this coming into play? I hope not, but just be mindful. Keep an eye out, because it's like too good to be true kind of story. But the fact is, the market does have a reason to believe it, because Powell is giving indication of the interest rate cuts. Okay? So just take that into consideration, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, guys, mad love and respect. I can't continue anymore. My eyes are absolutely fried. I'm not giving you my best, but just be mindful when Powell is going to be discussing later on, and keep an eye out on Trump when he starts talking as well. Please trade safely, guys, and I will talk to you all later. Peace.